Jimin shocks everyone by calling Jungkook a traitor during a live broadcast. What really happened behind the scenes forced HYBE to take action. "You're a traitor, Jungkook." The sentence sliced through the studio air like broken glass. Everyone froze, the hosts, the staff, the crew, the thousands watching live on were shocked into absolute stillness as Jimin's voice echoed against the polished walls of the broadcast room. Even the sound technician missed the cue to cut the audio. Time seemed to stop. Jungkook didn't move. His eyes were fixed on Jimin's face, expression unreadable until they weren't. The twitch in his jaw, the flare of his nostrils, the way his fingers slowly curled into fists on his thighs, it was all there for those who knew him. The camera didn't cut. It lingered. The silence grew unbearable. Then came the fake smile from the host, an awkward laugh. "Well, that's certainly something. Haha, let's go to a break, shall we?" But by then, it was too late. Within minutes, social media exploded. Jimin called Jungkook a traitor. What did Jungkook do? Protect Jungkook. HYBE statement now. Behind the glass, the control room was in chaos. PD Nim was shouting into his headset, staff were waving frantically, and one of HYBE's internal managers was already dialing someone high up, maybe even Bang Si-hyuk himself. But inside the studio, the storm was just beginning. Jimin had already stood up, ripping the tiny mic pack from his back and letting it drop to the floor with a thud that echoed more loudly than it should have. He didn't look at Jungkook again, not even once. He walked out of the room with the posture of someone who'd been holding something in for too long and had finally let it out. Consequences be damned. Jungkook stayed seated. No words. No tears. Not yet. When the door clicked shut behind Jimin, only then did Jungkook lift his head. His gaze wasn't lost, it was focused and dangerous. He didn't speak to anyone as staff members swarmed him, asking if he was okay, trying to guide him backstage. He moved past them like a ghost, like a storm that had yet to touch down. Outside, in HYBE's private van, Jimin sat staring at the tinted window. Rain had started falling, soft at first, then harsher, lashing the glass like the emotions he had tried to bury for months. His phone buzzed on the seat next to him. He didn't look at it. It had been buzzing non-stop since that moment. He knew the damage was done. There was no going back. But he also knew this. The world only saw the explosion. No one saw the fuse that had been burning all along. Back at the dorm, Taehyung had just returned from a solo schedule and stood frozen in the living room, watching the replay of the live broadcast that someone had clipped and sent to him, over and over and over again. Jimin's voice echoed in his ears. "You're a traitor, Jungkook." Taehyung dropped the remote and whispered, "What the hell happened while I was gone?" 2 hours later, HYBE issued a brief statement. "We are aware of the incident during the live broadcast involving BTS members Jimin and Jungkook. Internal discussions are ongoing, and we kindly ask for your patience and understanding." But patience was not the internet's virtue. Speculation surged like wildfire. Had Jungkook betrayed BTS? Had he signed a solo deal? Was this about the canceled Japan tour? Or something more personal, more devastating? Inside his room, Jungkook sat in the dark, lit only by the pale blue hue of his phone screen. Messages flooded in. Some were from fans, some were from people he hadn't heard from in months. A few were from Taehyung. One was from his mother. But the only message he opened was the one from Jimin. It wasn't a wall of text. It was one line. "You knew she was sick, and you still walked away." Jungkook stared at it, unmoving. His chest tightened not with anger, not yet, with shame, regret, and something far older, deeper, more painful than any scandal the public could imagine. The truth had not yet come out, but when it did, it would unravel more than just their friendship. It would drag the past into the present. It would crack open secrets they had promised to bury. And it would force every member of BTS to face the one thing they were never prepared for each other. Outside, the rain turned to thunder. Inside, Jungkook's hand finally moved. He reached into the drawer, pulled out the envelope he'd hidden months ago, and stared at the name written on the front. Park Ji-hun, Jimin's older sister, the one Jungkook had once promised to protect, the one no one was supposed to talk about again. But now, her name had returned, and everything was about to burn. You could have said something, anything, but you chose silence. Jimin's voice broke the tense stillness of the underground parking lot. The echo bounced off the cold concrete walls, but Jungkook didn't flinch. He stood near the back of the van HYBE had assigned for after-broadcast transportation, his shoulders drenched from rain he hadn't cared to avoid. His soaked hoodie clung to his frame, and his bangs dripped like tears that refused to fall from his eyes. "You knew what she was going through?" Jimin continued, stepping closer, fists clenched so tight his knuckles turned white. "You knew about Jihyun's condition, and still you disappeared." Jungkook slowly turned his head, finally locking eyes with him. There was no trace of the boyish warmth that had once defined their bondingly, a restrained fire that hinted at something darker, deeper. "I didn't disappear," Jungkook said calmly. "I was told to stay away." "Told by who?" Jimin hissed, his voice trembling. "HYBE? Your manager? Yourself?" Jungkook's mouth opened, then closed. That hesitation was enough to set Jimin off. "You don't get to hide behind protocol now," Jimin shouted, his voice rising to a pitch that caught the attention of a few passing staff members who quickly looked away. "She waited for you, Jungkook. She trusted you would come back." "You think I didn't want to?" Jungkook snapped, his voice raw now, vibrating through the hollow space. "You think it was easy for me to stay away while she was hooked up to machines, barely able to speak?" "You made it look easy," Jimin spat. "I begged to see her," Jungkook said through clenched teeth. "I begged. You think I didn't fight, that I didn't cry? But every time I tried to get close, someone from HYBE was there, reminding me of the contract clause, of the image, of the Fing rules." Jimin's expression faltered. For a second, but pain made him ruthless. "So you chose your career over her?" Jungkook's face twitched. That one hit harder than Jimin probably intended, but he didn't care. His emotions had crossed the point of no return. "You told her you'd protect her," Jimin whispered now. "You told her you'd be there." "And I meant it," Jungkook answered, voice hoarse. "But when she needed me most, I was told to vanish." "By who?" Jimin shouted again. "Tell me who. I want to hear the damn name." The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was the weight of 1,000 suppressed memories bearing down on both of them. Jungkook stepped back into the shadows of the van, his lips parted. "Bangsy Hyuk," he finally said. It wasn't an explosion. It was colder than that. It was betrayal delivered in ice. Jimin stumbled back a step, his breath catching in his throat. His world tilted. He looked like someone who had just been punched without being touched. "He stopped you?" Jimin asked, voice a breath. Jungkook nodded. He said I was too emotionally involved, that it would create a scandal, that if I visited her, the press would find out about our connection to Jihyun, that she had already signed NDAs, but it wouldn't matter if there were pictures, that everything we had built would be at risk. A bitter laugh escaped Jungkook's mouth. "Funny, right? They said my love would be too dangerous." "And you listened to him," Jimin said, each word shaking. "I listened to the company we both swore loyalty to," Jungkook shot back, louder now. "I listened to the man who gave us this life. I thought I was protecting her." "She didn't need protection," Jimin said. "She needed you." "I know," Jungkook finally yelled, louder than he'd ever raised his voice at Jimin in public or private. "Do you think I don't live with that every day? Do you think I sleep at night knowing the last thing I ever said to her was, 'I'll be there soon,' and then I never came?" Jimin's eyes turned glassy, but he refused to blink. "You don't get to cry now," he whispered. Jungkook didn't. He just stood there, broken. A black SUV rolled past him, headlights cutting across the tension like stage lighting, casting shadows of both men on the concrete wall behind them two fractured figures, once inseparable, now standing on opposite sides of a grave neither of them could ever visit publicly. "She wrote you letters," Jimin said, barely audible. "Every week. She hid them in her journals. She never told me until the night before." He couldn't finish. His throat closed around the words like a vice. "She forgave you," he said instead. That was the blow that finished Jungkook. His knees buckled slightly. His hand found the back of the van for support. "I don't deserve it," he muttered. "No," Jimin said coldly. "You don't." There was a sound behind them, someone clearing their throat. A staff member, nervous, approaching. Sirs? HYBE is requesting both of you return to the 18th floor conference room. There's an emergency internal briefing. Bang PD Nim is already on the line from New York." Jimin wiped his eyes quickly, reassembling the shell of composure he'd mastered as an idol. Jungkook didn't move at first, then finally nodded and followed. The walk to the elevator was silent. Upstairs, the 18th floor was dimly lit, blinds closed. Every HYBE executive seemed to be in that room. Managers, legal advisors, PR specialists, security. On the main screen, Bang Si-hyuk's face appeared in grainy high definition from a studio in Manhattan. He looked unusually serious. "I need both of you to sit," he said without greeting. They obeyed. "Do you understand what you've done?" he began, calm but cutting. "Do you know the damage control we've had to mobilize in the last 4 hours? Shareholders are demanding explanations. Advertisers want statements, and worst of all, Army is divided." He let that settle. "But I don't care about any of that," Bang continued, his voice changing. "What I care about is what I saw in that live." Jimin and Jungkook didn't speak. "I saw 2 people who are no longer pretending, 2 people who broke the illusion. And maybe," he paused, "that's a good thing." Murmurs spread through the room. Bang Si-hyuk leaned forward toward the camera. "I made decisions to protect this brand. I've sacrificed many things. But perhaps, this time, the cost was too personal." Jimin blinked. Jungkook frowned, not sure what game this was. "I won't apologize for the past," Bang said. "But I will say this. If Jihyun's story is going to come out, it should be told properly, on your terms." Jungkook's heart stopped for a moment. "What are you saying?" he asked. "I'm saying," Bang replied, "we'll greenlight the documentary." Everyone in the room went still. "What documentary?" Jimin asked. Bang looked between them. The one Jihyun was recording before she passed. About her illness, about you two, about the truth. The room exploded in noise. Jimin's face drained of color. Jungkook's pulse quickened. "You had that footage?" Jungkook asked, voice rising. "It was shelved after her passing, but it's all there. Her story, her voice, her pain, and her forgiveness." Jimin leaned forward. "Why now?" Bang looked tired, older than usual. "Because I'm tired of the secrets." A long silence followed. Finally, Jimin looked at Jungkook not with hate, not with love, just with the weight of someone holding too much truth in their chest for too long. "You better be ready," Jimin said quietly, "because if we do this, there's no going back." "I was never going back," Jungkook replied. And so it began not a reunion, not a healing, but a reckoning. The kind that stripped away the glitter, the choreography, the carefully managed image of perfection. Because now, it was no longer about BTS. It was about 2 brothers, and the sister who died waiting for one of them to come home. The screech of an old camera rewinding echoed inside the dim-lit archive room. A small, dust-covered studio tucked deep inside HYBE's basement levels, forgotten, repurposed, and now resurrected. On a flickering monitor, Jihyun appeared. Hair shaved close, face pale but defiant, eyes burning with a quiet fire that neither time nor illness had extinguished. Her voice, grainy but clear, rang into the room. "If they ever show this, I want people to know I wasn't angry. I just waited too long to say goodbye." Jungkook stood frozen in front of the screen, hands clenched at his sides, as if bracing for a punch that had been coming for years. Behind him, Jimin's breathing had quickened. He wasn't looking at the screen, he was watching Jungkook. Every twitch in his jaw, every subtle wince, every time his lips parted but failed to say anything, Jimin noticed all of it. The silence between them stretched, heavy and humid like summer heat. "Turn it off," Jimin finally said. Jungkook didn't move. "I said turn it off," Jimin barked. "No," Jungkook muttered. "I need to hear it. I need to remember what I let happen." "You don't need this," Jimin said, his voice shaking now. "You weren't the one watching her die. You didn't see what it did to her when your letters stopped, when your visit stopped, when you vanished like she never existed." Jungkook turned then, eyes dark, voice low. "I wrote every Fing Day, Jimin. They just never gave them to her." Jimin's expression cracked. "What?" "They told me not to contact her, that anything from me could become evidence of a personal relationship. I handed letters to my manager, I sent emails, I even tried to call her hospital through proxies. They told me she was being shielded from media pressure, that she needed peace. They lied, to both of us." "You're lying now," Jimin snapped. "You're trying to rewrite history." "I have nothing left to protect," Jungkook said, voice hollow. "No image, no fans, no brand. I'm standing here because I let the system silence me, and she paid for it. Don't act like a victim, Jimin hissed. Jungkook walked forward, closing the space between them. I'm not, he said, but you need to stop pretending you're the only one who lost her. Jimin's hands trembled at his sides. His breath came in shallow bursts. He looked away, blinking fast. Why did she forgive you? He asked bitterly. Why not me? I was there, every night, every appointment. I held her hand when she screamed in pain. But when she wrote that last entry, the one I found under her pillow, she forgave you, and not me. Jungkook's eyes widened. I didn't know, he whispered. She wrote it the night before she died, Jimin said quietly. It wasn't in her usual journal. It was on a piece of hotel stationery she kept folded in a book. One sentence. He took a shaking breath, reciting it from memory. Jungkook never left May, just wasn't allowed to come home. Jungkook sat down, slowly, like gravity had tripled. His voice broke when he spoke. She knew. Yes, Jimin whispered, finally letting tears fall. And it killed me. A beat of silence. I hated you, he continued. I hated you more than I thought I could hate anyone. You were supposed to be her escape, her safety, and you became the ghost that haunted her. Jungkook wiped his face with the back of his hand. I hated me too. A door creaked open. Taehyung entered, his expression unreadable. He looked between them and said nothing for a while. So it's true? He finally asked. HYBE stopped you? Jungkook nodded. Jesus Christ, Taehyung muttered. He paced a few steps, then turned. You know the fans are tearing each other apart right now, right? Some are blaming Jimin. Some think Jungkook cheated. Others say this is all a PR stunt. I don't care, Jungkook said flatly. Maybe you should, Taehyung shot back. Because this isn't just about you anymore. This is about her story, her voice. You want to air the documentary? Fine, but don't pretend it's for her if you're not willing to tell the whole truth. I am, Jungkook said. Good, Taehyung replied. Then start with the real reason you stopped visiting her, the part you haven't said yet. Jungkook stiffened. Which is? Jimin asked, eyes narrowing. Taehyung folded his arms. The night she called you. At 3 a.m. I was in the dorm. I heard your side of the conversation. You told her to stop calling. Jimin spun toward Jungkook. Is that true? Jungkook stood up slowly. His voice came out raw. She called me drunk, he said. She was crying. She said if I didn't come back soon, she'd do something stupid. Jimin's face pallid. She was spiraling, Jungkook said, choking. I panicked. I told her she needed to get help, that I couldn't be everything for her, that I wasn't her therapist, that I was drowning too. He looked up at Jimin. And I hung up. A long silence. Jimin's fists opened and closed. She tried to take her life that night, he said. We found her in the bathroom. Jungkook's knees buckled again. This time, he didn't try to stand back up. I didn't know, he whispered. Because you didn't call back, Jimin said. You shut her out completely after that. I was scared, Jungkook said, voice breaking. I was terrified of what I was doing to her, of how much she needed me, and how much I needed her back. He dropped to his knees. I never meant to love her, but I did, and I broke her. Taehyung walked out. The weight of it all too much. Jimin sat down slowly across from Jungkook. You have to carry that now, he said. Not just the image, not the career, the truth. I will, Jungkook said, but not alone. Jimin looked away. I don't know if I can ever forgive you. You don't have to, Jungkook replied. I'll still tell the truth. A staff member entered, holding a USB drive. We've gathered all of Jihyun's footage, her journals, everything. She gave consent on video before she passed. The legal team cleared it. The room fell silent again. Jimin stood. Then let's begin. They walked out together. Not as brothers. Not yet. But as two men finally ready to let the world see them not as idols, not as perfection, but as broken pieces of the same memory, trying to make it whole again. Start the cameras. Those three words, spoken so quietly by Jimin in the small editing room on HYBE's top floor, sent a chill through everyone present. The production team exchanged wary glances. A documentary producer hired just that morning was already sweating, holding a clipboard that trembled slightly in his hands. Jungkook didn't flinch. He was already seated under the harsh studio lighting, eyes locked on the black mirror of the lens in front of him. This wasn't a music video. It wasn't a teaser or a promotional shoot for an album. It was real. It was raw. It was a confessional. Beside him, Jimin remained standing, not beside him in the emotional senseno, not yet, just within frame. Taehyung stood behind the cameras with his arms folded, mouth pressed into a line, watching both of them like a man caught between fire and flood. The room quieted as the red light on the camera blinked on. Jungkook inhaled, then began. My name is Jeon. I am a member of BTS. And today, I'm not speaking as an idol. I'm speaking as the man who failed Park Ji-hyun. There was a collective stillness. Even the air conditioner seemed to hold its breath. I met Ji-hyun when I was 19. She wasn't just Jimin's older sister, she was a light. The kind that didn't try to shine but still filled a room. She used to say I was too young to understand what I was feeling, but I knew I loved her. Behind the camera, someone sniffled. A production assistant trying to keep her composure. She never asked for anything from Minot fame, not attention, just presence. But when things got complicated, I let fear speak louder than love. I let contracts speak louder than my heart. And when she needed me, I obeyed the people who told me to disappear. His voice cracked on the last word, but he didn't look away. I stayed gone until she was gone. Jimin exhaled sharply. He didn't cry, he just watched, studied, judged. But then Jungkook turned, facing him fully, still on camera. You never asked me what I would have done if I had the choice. You just assumed I chose the group, chose myself. But if she'd said the word just, once I would have given up everything, for her. Jimin finally responded. And she knew that. That's why she never asked. That moment hung in the air, heavy, tender, tragic. She wanted you to stay the golden boy, Jimin added bitterly, to keep shining, even while she faded. Jungkook bit his lip. I would have faded with her if it meant I didn't have to pretend she didn't exist. Jimin walked closer, now fully in the frame, and stood beside the chair. You think love means falling with someone? He asked quietly. You think that would have saved her? Jungkook didn't answer. Love, Jimin said, should have been staying strong enough to fight for her publicly, loudly. Love should have been saying FK the brand and walking into that hospital with cameras rolling if you had to. I was scared, Jungkook admitted. I thought if I lost this BTS, I'd lose the only family I had. You did, Jimin replied. You lost her. The producer gestured to pause, but no one in the room dared interrupt. Then let's not pretend anymore, Jimin said, turning to face the lens. I'm Park Jimin, and Ji-hyun was my sister. She died thinking the world had forgotten her, and I blamed him, he pointed to Jungkook, because it was easier than blaming myself. Jungkook blinked. I knew about her letters to you, Jimin confessed. I found them before she passed. I burned them. The room gasped. I wanted to erase the idea of you from her final days, Jimin said. I wanted to protect her from false hope. Jungkook stood now, shocked. You destroyed her words? I destroyed my guilt, Jimin said. I wanted to believe I was enough for her, that she didn't need you. He looked down. But she did. They stood in silence, face to face, like two fragments of a broken mirror. Do you still have the letters you wrote her? Jimin asked softly. Jungkook nodded. Bring them, he said. We'll read them. That night, BTS's official YouTube channel released a surprise teaser titled Letters to Jihyun, a BTS confession. It racked up 1 million views in 10 minutes. But while the world watched the trailer in shock, something else happened behind closed doors. HYBE's legal team received a cease and desist notice from Jihyun's biological father. Jimin's phone rang first. You used her name, the man growled from the other end, without my consent. You never gave a damn when she was alive, Jimin said coldly. I own her estate, he barked. You put her face on a camera without permission, I'll sue you to hell. Do it, Jimin snapped. Let the world see what kind of man you really are. But the man laughed. You think you're in control now, he said. You boys are playing with fire. You think your fans can save you from this? You're wrong. I still have the file. Jimin stiffened. What file? The man chuckled again. Ask Jungkook. Click. Jimin called Jungkook immediately. What did you do? Jungkook's voice was already tense. He's bluffing. What file, Jungkook? Silence. Then, finally, a whisper. I confessed. On video. Years ago, when Jeon first got sick. Jimin's heart sank. What did you confess? Jungkook closed his eyes. I told her I wanted to leave BTS, to take her and run, that I didn't care about the contracts, that I'd expose everything HYBE covered up about our private lives, that if they tried to stop me, I'd burn it all. Jimin could barely breathe. Why? Because she was dying, Jungkook said, and I was losing my mind. I thought if I made a threat, someone would take me seriously. I didn't know she'd save it, or give it to him. Jimin sat down. This changes everything. Yeah, Jungkook said. Now, it's not just a story, it's a weapon. The next day, media outlets leaked the existence of the video. BTS member allegedly threatened to expose HYBE in secret confession. Scandal grows as Park Ji-hyun's father plans legal action. Protect Jungkook trends worldwide after emotional documentary trailer. HYBE scrambled to contain the fallout. Bang Si-hyuk called an emergency meeting. I warned you, he said. I told you the past always bleeds. Jimin stood, voice firm. This isn't your story anymore, it's hers. Bang glared. And you think the truth will set you free? No, Jungkook replied, but it'll set her memory free. The documentary aired 2 nights later. No commercials, no edits, just raw, painful truth. In the final scene, Jimin and Jungkook read aloud Jihyun's final words. She loved both of us, Jimin said, voice trembling. She forgave both of us, Jungkook whispered. As the screen faded to black, no one was the same. Not them. Not the world. Not the fans who realized that behind every performance, there are secrets too heavy for the stage. But at least now, they were no longer silent. A single candle flickered in front of Jungkook as he sat alone in the practice room, an old ritual Jihyun once taught him. Whenever his thoughts got too loud or his chest too heavy, she'd tell him to find silence, light one flame, and speak the truth aloud. No audience, no cameras, just honesty in the dark. He hadn't done it in years. But tonight felt like the only night left. The documentary had detonated like a bomb across every platform imaginable. Fan-base lines were drawn and redrawn. Some praised the courage, some screamed betrayal. Former brand partners began to reconsider their campaigns. BTS, once a symbol of unity, was suddenly the epicenter of every late-night debate show, YouTube analysis channel, and conspiracy podcast. And now, the file. The confession Jungkook never intended to surface. A time-stamped video from a shaky hotel room camera in Japan, taken when he was 21. Eyes red, voice manic, saying too much, blaming too many, naming names he should have never said aloud. It leaked. Sumo Nano One knew who sent it anonymously to 3 media outlets. HYBE tried to scrub it, but it was too late. Once the internet had a scent, it never let go. The footage showed Jungkook talking to Jihyun, but only his voice was audible. The camera angle was tilted, likely placed on a shelf or table. He was pacing, furious, agitated. I swear to God, Jihyun, if they try to bury you behind more NDAs, I will go live. I'll tell the world what they did to you, what they did to me, what they did to all of us. You think I care about the backlash? I'll burn the Fing company down if it means you can breathe again. The video ended abruptly, but the damage, it continued to spread like a virus. Jungkook had just finished watching it for the 100th time when Jimin barged into the room. No knock, no announcement, just rage bear, unfiltered, and shaking with too many words that had nowhere to land. You didn't tell me it was that bad. Jungkook didn't look at him. Jimin kicked the stool across the room. I said you didn't tell me it was that bad. Finally, Jungkook turned. What would you have done, Jimin? If I told you then, would you have believed me? Or would you have run to bang PD Nim like you always did? Don't you fking dare, Jimin snapped. I protected you more than you know. No, Jungkook said bitterly. You protected the version of me that fit inside the mold. The golden boy, the obedient member, the safe choice. Jimin's chest heaved. And what were you? The rebel? The misunderstood genius? I was her escape, Jungkook screamed. The room went still. The candle flickered dangerously. Jungkook's voice dropped. I was the only thing that didn't remind her of hospital walls and needles. I sang to her when she couldn't sleep. I held her hand when she was afraid. And then I disappeared. Because of a fang clause in a contract I signed when I was 17. Jimin stepped closer, tears forming in the corners of his eyes. You think you were the only one who lost her? I fed her when she couldn't hold a spoon. I read her poetry when her lungs couldn't support more than a few syllables. I watched her break down and pretend to be fine, just so I wouldn't worry. I know, Jungkook said, voice cracking. That's why I didn't fight harder, because I thought you had her. I thought you'd be enough. And I thought you'd never let her go, Jimin replied, his voice barely a whisper. There was a long silence before Jungkook asked, Do you think she knew? Knew what? That she was the only reason I stayed sane. Jimin nodded slowly. She knew. She just didn't want to be your reason for breaking. The door creaked open behind them. Taehyung stood in the doorway, holding a manila envelope. It's from her lawyer, he said quietly. Jeon filed it before her last surgery. Sealed testimony. Jimin took it with trembling hands. He opened the envelope slowly and pulled out a letter. There were multiple pages, but on the top was a note written in her handwriting. To my boys, you don't need to forgive each other to love each other. He handed the first page to Jungkook. They sat down on the cold floor, side by side, and read. She talks about watching us perform on TV, Jungkook said, voice choked. She says she never blamed you, Jimin added. She said she felt like she was watching two halves of herself trying to survive the fire. There was a paragraph that made both of them go quiet. I want my story told, but not for pity, not for drama. Tell it because silence kills people like me, the ones who get pushed out of frame. Tell it for the girls who fall in love with boys who belong to the world. And tell it for the boys who forget they're allowed to fall apart. When they reached the last line, Jimin was crying openly. I love you both, always. Even if you never speak to each other again, I'll still be in the spaces between you. Taehyung sat down quietly beside them. You know what the internet is saying now? He asked softly. Jungkook shook his head. They're asking if BTS is over. Neither of them answered. Instead, Jimin reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He opened Twitter, typed one line, and hit post. We're not over. We're just finally telling the truth. The post exploded instantly. The comments were chaotic. The fandom was erupting. But inside that room, for the first time in years, there was silence. Real silence. The kind that came after honesty. That night, HYBE hosted an emergency meeting with the shareholders. Jungkook and Jimin were invited not as performers, but as men at the center of a firestorm. Bang Si-hyuk looked older than ever when they walked in. He didn't speak right away, just looked at them both for a long time. Then he said, The video's out. The world knows. Now what? Jimin looked him dead in the eye. Now you let us lead. Bang chuckled bitterly. Lead what? A scandal? No, Jungkook said. A movement. The board murmured. Jimin stepped forward. We want full creative control of the next documentary, Part 2. We want to show the aftermath, not just ours, but the people who reached out, the fans who've lost someone, the ones who suffer in silence. Jihyun isn't just a story. She's the voice of a generation ignored by the spotlight. And if we say no? Someone on the board asked. Jungkook shrugged. Then we walk. Bang stared at them. You'd really leave BTS? We already lost everything once, Jimin replied. We won't lose her again. There was silence. Then Bang stood and walked out without a word. The room waited. A minute later, the head of legal nodded. You'll get your project. Jimin looked at Jungkook, and for the first time in a long time, they smiled. It wasn't relief. It was resolve. They walked out of the boardroom not as broken boys, but as creators of something new, something sacred, something they owed to a girl who never wanted fame, just the truth. When they stepped outside, fans were already waiting, cameras flashing, reporters shouting. But Jungkook stopped, looked at Jimin, and said, Let them hear it from us. He stepped forward, no script in hand. My name is Jungkook. I failed someone I loved, but now I'm here to honor her, not hide her. Jimin joined him. My name is Jimin. I'm tired of pretending everything's fine. It's not. But together, maybe we can make it better. A girl in the crowd started crying. A boy lifted his phone and whispered, "Thank you." And in that moment, BTS didn't need a stage. They were standing on something far more powerful, the edge of healing. The hotel suite smelled of cedarwood and stale wine. It wasn't luxurious. HYBE had stopped offering them anything glamorous the moment the narrative shifted from global pride to potential liability. A security team still followed them, but the glances were no longer filled with deference, only surveillance. Jungkook stood by the window overlooking Seoul's skyline, the glimmering cityscape bathing his expression in light that couldn't reach his eyes. He hadn't spoken since the press conference. The moment Jimin publicly acknowledged Jihyun's story, everything changed. The silence around her name shattered like thin glass under heavy boots. The questions from reporters no longer danced around polite euphemisms. They wanted details, receipts, consequences. Jimin entered the suite without knocking. "You're going to ignore me forever?" Jungkook didn't turn. His voice was hoarse. "You told them I threatened HYBE. I told them the truth. You told them the version of the truth that makes you look like the savior." Jimin laughed bitterly. "If I wanted to look like a savior, I wouldn't have admitted to burning my sister's letters. Don't twist this. You said I was dangerous, that I was unstable, that I made Jihyun worse." Jimin's expression hardened. "Because you did. You pushed her away when she was begging you to stay. Don't you dare rewrite that." "I didn't rewrite anything," Jungkook snapped, finally turning around. "I gave her everything I could. And when it wasn't enough, you ran." "Because HYBE put a Fiking leash on my life," Jungkook shouted. "Because every time I stepped outside, I was reminded that I wasn't human. I was a symbol, a fantasy. And Jihyun was a reminder that fantasies break." Jimin stepped closer. "You didn't need to be perfect for her. You just needed to be there. She asked me if I would leave BTS for her, and I said no." Jimin froze. "She never told me that. Because she didn't want you to hate me more than you already did." Jimin blinked fest. "Why would you say no?" "Because I thought she wouldn't ask. Because I thought she understood. Because I was afraid." Jungkook sank into the couch, head in his hands. "I was 21 and terrified. I thought we had more time." Jimin sat across from him. "We never do." A long silence passed between them. It wasn't peaceful. It was raw, like a bruise still tender. HYBE's CEO called a few minutes later, not Bang Si-hyuk. He had vanished from the public eye after the leak, leaving the damage to be mopped by people who'd never been in a recording booth or on stage under screaming lights. The current CEO was colder. "We need to discuss your upcoming Japan concert," he said. "Cancel it," Jimin replied immediately. "That would be seen as a public admission of guilt." "We're not guilty," Jungkook snapped. "We're just grieving." "Then use that," the CEO replied. "Turn grief into a campaign. Reclaim the story." Jimin nearly dropped the phone. "You want us to commercialize my sister's death?" "The world already did," the CEO said. "Might as well control the narrative." Jungkook took the phone. "Here's the new narrative," he said calmly. "We're going to perform, but not for you, not for the charts. We're going to stand in front of that arena and play Jihyun's documentary on the LED wall. No choreo, no encore, just her." "That's not the brand." "We are the brand." Jungkook cut him off. "You made us gods. Now you can deal with what gods do when they're angry." He hung up. Jimin looked at him. "Are you sure about this?" "I'm not sure about anything," Jungkook said, "but I'd rather be hated for telling the truth than loved for faking another smile." The announcement went live that night. BTS to return to Tokyo Dome for one night only memorial show. No songs, just stories. ARMY was torn apart. Some accused them of exploitation, others called them brave. Petitions flew in every direction. Sponsors backed out, but the stadium sold out in under 3 hours. Taehyung joined them 2 nights before the flight. "You two look like you've aged a decade." "We have," Jimin said. "Are we really doing this?" "Do you want out?" Jungkook asked. "No," Taehyung replied. "I just want to know when we stop being brothers." Jungkook looked away. "I think we stopped the moment we thought silence was love." The flight to Tokyo was quiet, not because there was nothing to say, but because everything they could say had already been said in every version possible. The pain was shared now. It no longer needed explanations. Backstage at the Dome, the air was thick with uncertainty. Thousands of fans had arrived, many unaware what they were about to witness. Some still believed it was a prank. Others came prepared to scream for blood or salvation. Jungkook stood behind the curtain, heart pounding. "Do you remember the first time we stood here?" he asked Jimin. "You almost threw up," Jimin smirked. "You cried during spring day." "So did you." They shared a look that wasn't forgiveness, but something close. The lights dimmed, the crowd roared, then silence. Jimin stepped into the spotlight. "Army," he began. "This isn't a concert, it's a confession." The screen behind him came to life. Jihyun's face filled it, her voice echoed, her truth landed like thunder in a chapel. Jungkook took the mic next. "She told us to tell the world she mattered. That's what we're doing. Not as idols, as brothers." The stadium was quiet through the full 43-minute footage. Not a single scream, just sobs, hushed, weeping, the weight of honesty. When the screen faded to black, Jungkook sang. No music, no beat, just his voice trembling in the mic. "Still with you," he whispered, and the crowd broke. Fans held each other. Some collapsed in their seats. Others whispered her name. Afterward, they walked off stage, and Taehyung pulled them both into a hug. No one spoke. In the dressing room, a bouquet waited. Attached was a note. "You did it. She'd be proud, BSH." Bang Si-hyuk had left the country. No one had heard from him in weeks. Jimin took the card, read it, then ripped it in half. "She didn't want pride. She wanted presence," he said. Jungkook looked at him. "So now what?" "Now we stop running," Jimin replied. The final twist came days later. An anonymous tip arrived in Jimin's inbox. A folder of emails, receipts, contracts. It exposed how HYBE had used Jihyun's condition as leverage to manipulate Jungkook's public appearances, even forced media blackouts around hospital visits. The tipster signed the message. "I was part of the machine, but I'm done being quiet, a friend." Jimin showed the files to Jungkook. "This changes everything," he said. Jungkook nodded. "It's not just about her anymore, it's about all the ones we never saw. So let's make sure they're finally heard." And they did. In the months that followed, the documentary expanded into a global platform highlighting stories of fans who battled similar illnesses, emotional abuse, and systemic suppression. BTS stopped being a brand. They became something more dangerous. Real. And Jihyun? She wasn't just a sister. She became a revolution. The air in Seoul had turned bitter. Late autumn always held a certain cruelty, as if the cold wind carried with it every unresolved emotion the summer left behind. And now, in the heart of that brutal stillness, Jungkook stood inside a familiar Studio B in the HYBE compound. The room where Jihyun had once visited quietly after hours, sitting on the sofa in the corner, mouthing lyrics under her breath as Jungkook recorded Takes into the Early Morning. Now the sofa was gone, replaced, cleaned out like she never existed, just like before. But this time, he wasn't going to let it stay that way. Jimin entered without knocking, again. His face was unreadable, eyes cold, jaw tense. The warmth he once offered in silent glances had been stripped bare over the past few weeks, replaced by a permanent readiness to fight. "You summoned me?" he said, sarcasm hanging off every syllable. Jungkook gestured to the console, where several files were open on screen. Audio recordings. One in particular played softly in the background a raw demo of a song Jihyun had written in secret. Her voice, hesitant but haunting, singing lyrics that clearly had been meant for him. Jimin's body went still. "Where did you get this?" "She sent it to me," Jungkook replied. "A week before she died. I never opened it. Not until now." "Why?" "Because I was afraid it would make me come back." Jimin's lip twitched. "And now that you've heard it?" "Now I can't stay quiet anymore." Jungkook handed him a Documenta printed contract, dated 3 years ago. It was signed by Jihyun. The recipient, HYBE Corporation. The contents, a confidentiality agreement that barred her from publicly speaking about her relationship with Jungkook. In exchange, she was given access to private healthcare and an undisclosed stipend. Jimin stared at the paper like it might ignite in his hands. They bought her silence. "She signed it willingly," Jungkook said, softly now. "She told me she didn't want to ruin what we had built." "What you had built," Jimin snapped. "Not us. You. You think I wanted this?" "I think you let it happen." Over and over. Jungkook stepped forward, furious. And what about you, huh? Mr. I protected her from the world? You never told me she tried to reach out. You never told me she asked for me. How many calls did you ignore? Jimin shoved him. Don't you twist this. I was the one who stayed. I was the one who held her when she couldn't breathe. And I was the one who buried her while you sang encores halfway across the world. Jungkook didn't push back. I know, he said. That's why I'm trying to make it right. You can't make it right, Jimin said, voice breaking. You can only stop making it worse. A beat passed. Then another. Jungkook spoke, quieter now. She left one more message, hidden in the audio file. A voice memo stitched into the last second. You want to hear it? No. Too bad. You need to. A hit play. Jihyun's voice came through. Weak, fading, but clear. Jimin, if you find this, please forgive him. He didn't leave because he stopped loving me. He left because I asked him to. I made him promise. I knew if he stayed, he'd destroy himself trying to save me, and I wanted at least one of you to survive this. The room fell into a vacuum of silence. Jimin sank onto the floor like the world had been ripped from under him. She asked you to leave? Jungkook nodded slowly. I didn't want to, but she was so insistent. Said if I stayed, I'd drown. She thought she was protecting me. She lied, Jimin whispered. She lied to protect you, and it destroyed everything. He buried his face in his hands. I hated you. All this time, I hated you for something she did. I hated me too, Jungkook said. The door creaked again. Taehyung stood there, holding another envelope. What now? Jimin asked, voice numb. Another ghost? Worse, Taehyung said. A living one. He handed them both a set of printed emails. They were from HYBE's internal server, anonymous leaks. The content made both Jimin and Jungkook's hands tremble. There were messages between senior executives' plans to distance Jungkook from Jeon during the height of her treatment, strategies to manipulate public appearances, even discussions of how to gradually disconnect him from any association with a non-idol partner. One message stood out. If Park Ji-hyun dies quietly, no harm will come to the brand. Let's just make sure she dies quietly. Jimin went pale. They knew. They always knew, Jungkook said. Taehyung sat beside them, and we let them get away with it. Not anymore, Jimin said. Not this time. A plan formed over the next 12 hours. Jungkook gathered every voice note, email, message, and contract he had. Jimin went to his lawyer. Taehyung pulled out old footage from practice rooms, dressing rooms moments where Jihyun's absence had clearly shaken them, though the cameras never asked why. And they decided they would release everything, but not through HYBE, not through labels, not through controlled networks, live, uncut, on their own. Jungkook typed the announcement himself, posted it on every platform they owned. No more edits, no more silence. We're going live at midnight. You'll hear it all. Within minutes, the internet caught fire. At exactly 12:00 a.m., millions tuned in. No stage, no studio lights. Just Jungkook, Jimin, and Taehyung in a dim-lit room, eyes red, faces bare, hearts exposed. They began with Jihyun's song, the one she never released. Then the emails, read aloud. Then the contracts. Then the footage. And finally, Jimin spoke. I hated my brother, he said. Not Jungkook, Jihyun. I hated that she chose to suffer quietly, that she didn't fight harder, that she didn't let me fight harder for her, but I understand now. She loved us in ways we didn't deserve. Jungkook followed. This isn't about redemption. This is about reckoning. Then Taehyung. They wanted us to stay pretty and polished, but the truth is ugly, and it matters more than any choreography ever will. The stream ended after 1 hour, but the world didn't. News outlets exploded, shareholders resigned, former employees came forward, fans organized vigils, protests, campaigns demanding Changjino just in HYBE, but in the entire entertainment industry. They called it the Jihyun effect. Jimin received a letter from a girl in Busan, 17 years old, terminal cancer. She wrote, because of Jihyun, I told my family the truth about what I'm going through. I don't want to die quietly. Jungkook stared at that letter for a long time. Then he called Jimin. Let's build something new, he said. Like what? A foundation for people like her. Jihyun's name would not just echo, it would transform. And for the first time in years, they weren't mourning. They were rebuilding, together. It had been 10 days since the midnight broadcast. The internet had yet to recover. Millions of tweets, reaction videos, think pieces, and protest threads flooded every platform. But amid the noise, something deeper began to ripple beneath the surface, something no one, not even Jungkook and Jimin, had anticipated. The industry was shaking. Agencies quietly withdrew old artist contracts. NDAs were being examined under harsh new scrutiny. And HYBE was bleeding. Not just money, reputation, influence. The armor they had carefully welded around their idols for over a decade had cracked open, revealing the wires, the scripts, the silent coercion. Jungkook hadn't slept, not properly. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Jihyun's face in that hospital bed. Not the public version, the elegant photos taken before her diagnosis. No, the real one, pale skin, dull hair. Eyes filled with unspeakable loneliness and the quiet forgiveness that would haunt him for the rest of his life. That morning, he arrived at the new foundation building. It was just an old school they had rented temporarily. The plan was to turn it into a community center, a place where young people with illnesses or silenced voices could come and feel seen. Jimin was already there, sitting in the corner of the main hall, a mug of untouched coffee in his hands. She would have loved this place, he said, without looking up. Jungkook sat beside him. She would have rolled her eyes at how sentimental we're being. No, she would have called us dramatic and then cried in the bathroom when no one was looking. Jungkook smiled, the kind of smile that never quite reached the eyes. We have a problem, Jimin added. What now? The CEO of HYBE is going public. He's holding a press conference in 2 hours. Let me guess, he's going to call us liars. Worse. He's going to spin it. Turn Jihyun into a tragic love story. Romanticize her. He'll pretend the company supported her all along, that you and I just misunderstood. Jungkook's jaw clenched.